Well, if you're like me and you like all things football, not just the NFL, but CFL, XFL, USFL, you name it, one of the sources that I go to is Reid Johnson, who has his own website called markcast.com. He's got a great YouTube channel. Just look for the Markcast there on YouTube. Reid Johnson, appreciate you joining me today to talk about one of the big questions that we're going to have at hand this spring. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate. Yeah, I call it alternative football. I think
Yep.
you call that. I get in trouble sometimes because we talk, like you said, we talk CFL and
Mm-hmm.
people scream, "Well, it's not alternative football to us." It's like I understand it, but anything
Right.
non NFL. I just wrapped an interview with the commissioner of fan control football, which is arena Twitch football. So yeah,
Right.
all kinds of alternative football here.
It's the alternative to the NFL. We'll use that as the definition. Before we get to the question at hand, Reid, I just want to know a little bit about your background and how you got started, and tell us about what the Markcast really is.
Yeah, so my old co-host Paul and I, we were big XFL fans. We and my buddies here in Seattle, we had 2020 season tickets and kind of lived through that whole thing. Had no idea. I had really never watched football. I used to work in local news, and so I would go cover it. I was with the Fox affiliate here in Seattle, so we covered the Seahawks Super Bowl run, and I interviewed like Richard Sherman and stuff like that. Covered. I was in a helicopter kind of for the Super Bowl celebration, but really never cared about football at all. Didn't know about any of that. Didn't watch any games except the Seahawks. And then I watched the XFL and was immediately hooked. I really liked the broadcast aspects of it they brought in, that I could hear the play call and hear the announcers talk about that, and the on-field interviews, all the kinds of things that the XFL was trying to do intentionally to bring in casual fans to educate them more about the game. That really captivated me. And so when the XFL went, cease and desisted and everything that was happening back in April, March of 2020, got into the NFL. The XFL actually is what got me into the NFL. And then from there, our coverage and love has expanded to the Canadian football game. Obviously, them talking with the XFL back last year now, and then USFL starting out in Birmingham. So really kind of got into it through all of that, as we are still waiting for the XFL to return, which, save for an alien invasion, should come here in February.
That's right. Well, with spring football, as we know, we are conditioned to know when they kick off, then you say, okay, it has begun. Because how many times have we seen those those failed leagues? Do you think it's going to happen and it doesn't happen? But what an interesting story that you got involved, that your entree to the NFL was through the XFL. I think a lot of us, it was kind of the other way around.
Yeah, I never, like I said, I never watched any games outside of the Seahawks. Now I die hard. I mean, I follow all the teams and stuff. Honestly, probably more so than even the XFL or the USFL, just because it's a passion, right? If I'm
Right.
watching the CFL games, I'm like taking notes, or okay, I got to talk to this person about that. But can watch it. I'm a big Washington Commanders fan, even though I live in Seattle. But we at least have one team in the playoff standings as we
Right.
record this, so that's good.
That's true. That's all we can ask for, right? And I'm a huge Seahawks fan, so that's all we can ask for. Okay, let's get to the question at hand. You talked about going down to Birmingham, watch the USFL. I went down there about midway through the season, and USFL had a successful season in 2022. And again, I think our version of success is they actually made it through an entire season and then got to a championship game, and there was a championship played, because we've seen too many falter. You mentioned the XFL shut down because of COVID in 2020. The Alliance of American Football, which seemed like it had so much promise, was a disaster, never even got halfway through the season. So now we got this spring, USFL set to come back in 2023. The XFL joins the fray in 2023. So the question now really at hand is, do you think that the USFL and the XFL can coexist side by side? And I have some thoughts. I want to get your thoughts first, because I think they're two spring football leagues, but they might be a little different in a few ways. So tell me what you think. Can they coexist?
Well, and also just to add to that, like I said, I just interviewed Ray Austin with Fan Control Football. So they're kicking off in May.
Right.
So, and they had done February in 2021. They did April last year. They kicked off the same day as the USFL, which I thought was crazy. But then
Right.
this year they're in May. So you will have XFL running February, March, April. You're going to have USFL kickoff, like you said, April. They're probably going to overlap by a couple weeks, and then the
Right.
XFL. We still don't have the XFL TV schedule, but we'll get that. And then FCF kicking off in May. It's going to be really hard. You've already seen, multiple quarterbacks from the USFL here signed with the XFL in their preliminary draft here. They're going to have a supplemental draft come January. All the original USFL contracts will expire here at the end of the year. They option in a lot of the later signees during the season, but a lot of those marquee, I would say, like hey, we got to get this guy signed. They're all on 1-year deals.
Right.
And Mike Mitchell with XFL News Hub, I think he reported 400 or so USFL players have actively reached out and optioned, to try to get into the XFL. XFL doesn't even want all of those. So then the question is like, is the USFL getting those leftovers? It's what it feels like to me, and I'm always called the big USFL hater. I do not want to be that, but when you go first, you get your first choice, and
Right.
I think USFL trying to lock people down right now. We saw they're working on their collective bargaining agreement this week, trying to figure all that out with you. So they want to be able to offer a package. But if I'm someone, I'm going to sign the XFL or wait out, because even if I don't make it, it's not like the USFL is not going to take me, right? I mean, they're going to need talent there.
Yeah, and you're right. They're going to overlap a lot, and I guess when I mean coexist, I mean like is there going to be? I think there'll be the players there, but it could end up being a battle for players, and it's going to be a battle for eyeballs.
Yeah, it is. I mean, USFL showed. I was very critical of the way that they kind of approached the season last year. I understand that it was an incubator season. They were trying to show that it could exist. Like John said, we need to get through a kickoff to a championship game and do all that. But they really put the bare minimum into effort. So we saw that on any given Saturday, Sunday in the spring, there's about 1.25 million people that are going to sit down and watch football. XFL coming in with a lot more pizzazz and cachet, right? You have The Rock, Danny Garcia, $7 production behind that. The team that's done Terramana, Zoa, all those other things. So I think they're going to want to make a splashier approach. The question is, can you elevate that above 1.5 million viewers? I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they end up doing.
Yeah, and both of us have TV backgrounds, so that's kind of the one thing that tends to pop in our mind. Will it be, how many people are going to watch? And you're right. USFL Championship was aired on Fox, got 1.25 million viewers. But when you look at that final week of the USFL season, on FS1, for instance, it was the Breakers and the Gamblers, 181,000. That kind of stuff's not going to be sustainable. But Saturday night in that final week on Fox, Birmingham and Tampa Bay got about 650,000 viewers. So that to me is kind of leads, I think, to success because for a couple of reasons. One, it felt like the USFL was a TV show. Eric Shanks with Fox Sports. This was kind of his baby. They turned Birmingham and that stadium into, which was beautiful. Yeah, it was. I mean, just a great setup. It wasn't about ticket sales. It was about putting a TV product on television, and it was a studio. But to me, the XFL feels like they're really trying to build more of the traditional football league. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I mean the USFL, Fox owns it outright. So
Right.
NBC paid them to air some of the footage, but they basically ran that from, hey, we have extra hands on deck here that can do some social media for them, right? I mean, besides the staff, right? Coaching staff, players, people in Birmingham. A lot of those other people were working on other things. So when Fox came out last year and said USFL is profitable, there's really no way it couldn't have been, just because they weren't spending that much money on it. I mean, they besides, like I said, besides it's not worthy, like you said, the XFL really does want this. Like, we are spending money. We have, we have so far 7 of 8 venues negotiated. We're going to have, players in the stadium, fans in the seats. We're going to have local, I guess, marketing happening in these, where Fox said, we're going to put up some billboards in Birmingham. We're going to put the games on Fox and NBC and whoever. But, the precursor to the USFL, which was the Spring League, I mean, they got 400,000 viewers, Fox, and that was Brian Woods with cardboard in his basement putting that together. Right. So, I think there's a bare minimum number of people that are going to watch anything that's on Fox on any given day, or NBC.
Yeah, you're going to get it'll always be the case. You're going to get more eyeballs when it's actually on a network rather than if someone has to go. And that was one of the major problems. There were multiple problems with the AAF. It was hard to find those games if you didn't know, I've got to go onto the Bleacher Report app to watch this one. I've got to go to FS2 to watch this other one. It's just and you're right. I think with the network money behind that and with that outlet, um, they are set up for success, and they should be funded. I can't imagine that Fox would pull the plug on the USFL. So, but you are a noted hater, so we understand that. And I'm gonna call it an apologist for the USFL. So maybe we're on different sides there. I'm kidding. Did you enjoy Birmingham when you went down there and to watch some of those games?
I really did. I
I
thought the
did too.
biggest thing for me was that first game was electric. I think everybody, because I was even interviewing people in Birmingham ahead of time because all the games were there.
Right.
And I know people made the attendance, and that was the story all season. But in their wildest dreams, I never thought they'd imagine so few people would be there for the non-Birmingham
Yeah.
games. And it mattered. It mattered a lot. They didn't do enough in terms of camera angles and things. I mean, I watched wrestling WWE for years during COVID. WrestleMania, they did those like pre-taped, empty arena, all that kind of
Yeah.
there's creative ways to do it. And they were just like, no, we're filming it like a normal football game. We're going to have the drone fly around. Like, I think, but the first game was good. I thought that the quality of play, because they rushed, they did not want to pay the players to be there for training camp. They only had like 2 to 3 week training camp, kind of just barely scrimmages getting ready. I thought that quality of play the first weekend should have been better. I think they had a lot of viewers for that first game because they got it was like 3.2 or something between the two networks for the kickoff game. And then it dropped week 2 because I think people saw the quality of football. And except for that first game, the first weekend, I did not think it was up to snuff.
Well, and for some of us who are old enough to remember the first iteration of the XFL back in 2001, it was a lot like that. The first weekend got really good ratings. The football was absolutely terrible. As the season progressed, the football got better because it was the same kind of issue. These guys were you had 8 expansion teams. They were all playing together. And the football quality got better, but the audience dropped off. And that was one of those you were having to go to. I think at the time it was TNN that you have to watch some of the games, that kind of stuff. We talked about the players, Reid, and there's no question that there are enough players out there. When you look at the numbers of 73,000 players in college, only 254 of those will go to the draft. So there is a good pool of players. Are we going to start to see maybe, and I think this will be the case because both of these entities have money, but I wonder if we will see a bidding war with some players if this continues to ramp up and they become rival leagues.
It's interesting. They had the first list of quarterbacks come out for the XFL here, and we did the draft. I think, Doug Whaley, I think it was, had said when they kind of released all that to ESPN, they're really wanting to cultivate the next talent. We still get people, oh, is Johnny Manziel coming back? Or what's Kaepernick doing? I think they, at least right now maybe year 2, 3, right now, they don't want to spend money on this talent. I mean, they want to spend the base level. We might pay up for a little bit. USFL was the same way. They could have secured, they have Chad Kelly, I know, was interested in that. He ended up going up to the CFL. He's a nephew of Jim Kelly. Tell me that wouldn't have been a good story for the USFL, but they didn't want to pay that. They both ownership, management, leadership, whatever you want to say, of both of these leagues are fascinating, and they're both incredibly stubborn in their own ways. And it's so fascinating to watch them go back and forth.
I'm looking forward to it. I think, again, it feels like these are two separate. They're I don't even know if I would call them rival leagues right now. It just feels, again, like the USFL was a TV show. The XFL is trying to be a more traditional football league. The good thing, I think, for all of us alternative football fans, or however you want to put it, is it feels like these will be financially backed for a few years. I don't think it's going to be a one and done for the XFL, and maybe not a 2 and done for the USFL. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say they're very much rival leagues, though.
Yeah.
I would say when the day of the XFL supplemental, or the quarterback selection, the USFL is like, hey, we're going to Memphis this year. We're setting up another hub. I mean, I had talked with USFL people back last year. Oh, we don't care what the XFL is doing. Like, we are full steam ahead. But it is interesting that both, the week of the USFL kickoff, that's when we got the head coaches announced by the XFL. Like I said, with the quarterback. No, I think Fox is committed because, like you said, it is a TV show. It's cheap. Like, what are we going to air Saturday afternoon at 4:30? Avatar rerun. Like, what are we doing? So they need to fill content, and they need to fill. What I did not like about it was, like you said, hard to find games. If you are Fox, if you control it, going to FS1 at 10 on a Sunday or whatever, trying to watch some of these games. If you control it, you need to be able to get them in better time slots.
Yeah, that we saw. Yeah, USA, FS1. It was sometimes hard to find, and that's what you want it to be accessible for the casual fan, because you and I might be hardcore fans, but they've got to appeal to the people who would just be flipping around and say, "Oh, this looks interesting." You're not flipping around usually on FS1. You're not that high on the dial a lot of the times.
Well, no, and I would get in arguments with that where people are like, oh, they email it out, they post it on Twitter. It's not that hard. I go, I cover this 2 hours every week. Like I couldn't tell you when the games are on this weekend. Like
Yep.
I am not their target audience. Their target audience is someone that remembered the USFL back in the 80s, and they're not going to FS1 if you were watching the Breakers back in 83 or whatever.
Hey, listen, we're not that old. That's all right. But, and you talked about Twitter. It was funny. Maybe they are kind of rival leagues, because it was funny on the uniform reveal week for the XFL. USFL starts tweeting out, I think we have, for no reason, I think we have the best uniforms around. Check these out. So maybe there is a little bit of a rivalry there. You may be right.
I will say USFL uniform, not the uniforms, so their uniform reveal is far better. I thought the quality they have for that. I was very underwhelmed by the production that came out, because that's the thing. Like, okay, it's been 2 years. We're promised, like, oh, it's Danny and The Rock, and they know entertainment. Like, they're going to get all this. I thought the uniform reveals were very lackluster on that. I would have liked to see some stuff on, ran on ESPN, or like when they had the quarterbacks and all that selected. But it felt like, we had some TikTok-y videos, really dark, really hard to see. And when you're unveiling uniforms, the USFL with that Stark, and you had like the Breakers or the black, the white backgrounds, or I guess showing the Stallions or whatever. Really cool to see. I really like that more than what the XFL did.
Yeah, and the XFL uniform reveal, you were live on the Markcast on YouTube, and I joined that. You refused to read a couple of my comments. I'm a little hurt, but that's all right. No, I'm kidding. But you're right. It was like we were having to go back and literally pause the video to see, like, oh, wait, this helmet looks different, or this looks, And again, that's a hardcore fan thing, but they really tried to appeal to a broader audience by putting it on SportsCenter during the day. So I thought that was, I thought that was a pretty good move to try to reach a lot of the sports fans who aren't following this right now, because we are in the heart of the NFL season.
I maintain neither of these leagues, I think, truly know who their demographics are. I think I don't. Right. I think USFL last year could have benefited a lot from sports gambling and betting, trying to get that. That was the whole thing. We heard, oh, it's Fox and Fox Bets. We're going to get all that. We're releasing injury reports at 3 a.m. on Friday morning before the games. Like at XFL, we've paid $15 million for this, legacy league that has all these teams. Like, we don't want to talk about 2020. All, like, please don't be like, we bought the house, we knocked everything. Like, we don't want to hear about it. It's both of these leagues are fascinating.
They are. You're right. It's the house that has good bones, but you gotta have to maybe renovate a little bit inside. That's true. Okay, Reid. Final question here. We can watch both, and I'm sure we'll both watch both this spring. And a lot of people out there will do so. But if you're an investor and someone says, Reid, I need you to invest in one of these leagues, it's going to be the USFL or the XFL. If you're an investor, which one would you invest in?
I honestly, the USFL, they got the FedEx guy, right, in Memphis, Steve, whatever his name is. That was kind of the whirlwind. I don't think he's officially invested yet. I think he's incentivized them to come to Memphis, kind of figure that out. I don't know. Danny and The Rock have a really strong hold on this XFL thing right now. And I know eventually they're going to want to franchise that out. Fox is very much like, please invest in us now. Please, like they're screaming, right? I mean, it's almost to the point where they're like running lower thirds during the games. Like, if you would like to purchase the next, USFL team, please call 1-800. Like, right. But I mean, it's getting to that point where they're screaming to invest. Like you said, there's money behind that. It's cheap programming. I don't know the sexiness behind it, right? Like, I don't know if you get off owning the New Jersey, Generals or whatever, if that gets you going. But long term, Danny and The Rock, they're very, very protective of what they have right now.
Yep, you're right. These are two fascinating leagues, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out for some of us who have been around spring football for a long time. It's sometimes the behind the scenes, as you said, Reid, it's almost as fascinating as what happens on the field. So it'll be interesting to see the kickoff here. And there's no question that if you want to know all the behind the scenes and listen to the players and coaches and everyone involved, check out the Markcast on YouTube and certainly the markcast.com. Reid Johnson, appreciate you joining me.
I can't believe you got me to say the USFL was a better investment than the XFL. I got to
I've recorded this. I
I-
have this on tape now.
I have a reputation I have to uphold.
That's right. Well, you're the hater. I'm the apologist. So this worked out well.
There we go.
Thanks, Reid.